reporting. So before we start this session on national reporting, I would like to invite our Executive Secretary, Monica Stankiewicz, to provide us with opening remarks on this matter. Monica, you have the floor. Okay, she might have a little difficulty. So let's. So Monica, if you're able to join us, just go ahead and jump in. While we're waiting for you, let me just quickly share and explain to those who are joining us about the session. So the session will be focused on national reporting, particularly item J of the agenda. We will cover the specific documents involved in the item J, and note that there are certain interlinkages with national reporting, particularly on recommendations coming from the Implementation and Compliance Committee. That issue will be covered briefly by my colleague Lara, who will also join us shortly. But there is a specific briefing session for that item, and Lara will also be mentioning when that'll be, and we'll be inviting you when she is covering the topic of ICC during the session. With that, let me just double check if Monica is able to join us. Monica, the floor is yours. Okay. All right. It seems that there's still some technical difficulty.
Thank you. I think I'm ready, and apologies for some troubles with my double camera options. I hope you can hear me and see me better now, even though I realize not perfectly.
Yes.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to the deep dive session on national reporting that is focused on presenting documents related to national reporting for the upcoming 5th meeting of the Conference of the Parties that will be held in a few weeks' time. Let me start by highly appreciating parties' efforts to report within the recent first full national reporting exercise, which resulted in an impressive reporting rate. This is a clear indication of the commitment of the parties to implement the Minamata Convention and to fulfill its requirements. What it also means is that we have a wealth of information available from parties based on which we can draw conclusions on the progress in implementing the convention, but also on challenges that the parties are facing. And the upcoming Conference of the Parties can agree on appropriate steps to facilitate parties' implementation, and parties can also jointly consider and think of the ways forward to overcome the reported challenges. And to recall, one of the important functions of the Conference of the Parties is to regularly review all information that is made available to it and to the Secretariat pursuant to Article 21. And to this end, the Secretariat has prepared several documents on national reporting that will be presented to you today. And what I would like also to add is that through this recent full national reporting, we have also learned what can be improved in the national reporting format or in reporting format. The reporting format is already very good, is structured to provide quantitative information along with qualitative information, and that enabled the Secretariat to employ digital tools and create an online reporting tool, ORT, which a great majority of parties have used in their reporting, filing their reports. Yet the reporting format can be further improved, and through the recent exercise we have learned from parties what they would like to wish to see clarified in the reporting questions, and there are also proposals from the Implementation and Compliance Committee in this regard, and both of these issues are also put forward these issues put forward to the consideration of the COP. And and this is something my colleagues will clarify further, but during this deep dive session, we will focus on reporting as a distinct obligation and activity from activities and obligations related to Implementation Compliance Committee. However, the Implementation Compliance Committee carried their activity during the current intersessional period, mostly focused on reporting. So obviously there's also a linkage here, and there will be a brief presentation of the ICC work. And we will expand information on activities and work of ICC in a separate briefing that we are planning for Sunday, just prior to the COP. And you will hear more about how we are planning to run this briefing later today as well. So with this, let me then complete my introductory remarks and hand over to you, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monica, for your remarks. And before we start, I just wanted to acknowledge that I will be joined by my colleagues, Lara and Lynn, and they will be introducing themselves at the sections that they will be presenting, before the sections that they will be presenting. And we're also being supported by our colleagues, Shariful, Pablo, on the back end. And thank you very much, guys. Now, before we continue, I just wanted to remark that, or rather, to share that please, if you have any questions or comments, please indicate it in the chat box. We will compile all of the questions. And for those of our team members that are able to respond, we will respond to you in the chat box. And there's also an opportunity to ask questions later at the question and answer portion of this session. Now, may I direct you to the slide in front of you. Now we have the overview of this deep dive session. We've covered the introduction portion. Now we will proceed. The following sections are the items we will be covering. The periodic report of the Secretariat, followed by the proposed amendments to the reporting format and draft reporting guidance, including the ICC recommendations, the linkages there that Monica mentioned, as well as we will be also covering very briefly the activities of the Secretariat to support the submission of the second short reports. Before the question and answers, we will also cover the suggested action for the COP. Next slide, please. All right, so we are looking at item 4J, national reporting. There are 3 working documents that's covered: national reporting 5/15, 5/15 add 1, which covers proposed amendments to the reporting format, 515/add 2, draft guidance for completing the national reporting format of the convention. And then we also have 2 documents. One is on the Secretariat's report on the first full national reports under Article 21, and in 21, the summary tables of the responses to the report. To your right, you will see the screenshot of the website, particularly on the section of the first full national reports. So please visit it. If you haven't visited it, you're welcome to check and look at this very good resource in terms of both the short reports and the first full national reports, and then of course, the second short national reports that are due by the end of the year. Next slide, please. Now let's first cover document 5/15, national reporting. The document has 6 sections. There's 5 substantive portions of this, starting from section 2, which covers the Secretariat's periodic report, section 3 on the proposed amendments to the reporting format, and section 4 covers the reporting guidance for consideration and adoption. Section 5, the activities of the Secretariat to support parties reporting for the second short national reports. And then section 6, the proposed action. Kindly note that the annex of the document contains a proposed decision on national reporting pursuant to Article 21. To your right, you will see the copy of the document. This is the final version of 5/15, and we're glad and happy to inform you that this is now available on our website in all UN languages. So please go ahead and check that, document 515. Next slide, please. Now, this will be on the periodic report. I will hand the floor over to my colleague Lynn to walk you through the initial findings on performance rating. Thank you. Lynn?
Thank you very much, Richard. Hi, everyone. My name is Linh Duan. I'm a Program Management Assistant of the Minamata Convention Secretariat. It's my pleasure to be with you today in the preparation for the run-up to COP-5. In this slide, I would like to give you a quick overview of the reporting performance for the first full national reports, covering the period from 16 August 2017 to 31st December 2020, and were due by 31st December 2021. Pursuant to paragraph 2E of Article 24, the Secretariat developed a periodic report to the parties of the Convention based on the information received pursuant to Article 15 on Implementation and the Compliance Committee, and Article 21 on reporting, as well as other available information. The report is presented in Information Document Inc. 20, Secretariat Report on the first full national report under Article 21. This document, as mentioned by Richard, to be read in conjunction with the Document 21, which contains summary tables of the responsive received for the first full reporting period. These information documents are made available on the Convention website. In the bottom half of the screen is a screenshot of the reporting dashboard, which many of you are likely already familiar with. The dashboard displays the following information: reporting rate of the first full national reports at 95%, number of parties required to report during the first full reporting cycle, 123 parties, number of parties that have submitted their reports so far, 117 parties, number of parties that submitted their reports by the deadline, 31st December 2021, 87 parties. The dashboard also gives data visualizations of when reports were submitted from November 2021 to the present, and it's noteworthy that a significant number of reports were submitted during Christmas and New Year holidays prior to the 2021 deadline, which demonstrates the strong commitment of parties to fulfill their obligations under the Article 21. In the next slide, we will provide you with brief statistics on the completeness of submitted reports and the tools parties use for submission. For more details, please consult Information Document 20, the Secretariat Report of the first full national reports under Article 21. I would like to mention that after a party submits a national report, the Secretariat conducts a completeness check. Out of the 117 parties that submitted reports, 106 provided complete reports. Additionally, 99% of parties used the online reporting tool, the ORT, reflecting their commitment to embracing digitalization. The Secretariat acknowledged that 8 parties reported challenges in preparing their reports. And here also another screenshot of the reporting dashboard. The bar chart, as you can see on the screen, displays the status of submitted reports by region. Currently, the Eastern Europe states, GRULAC, and the Western European and others group are the 3 regions that have achieved a 100% reporting rate. On the right, You can see a tree graph showing the languages used by party to report under Article 21. The majority of parties submitted their reports in English, followed by French, Spanish, Arabic, and Chinese. At the bottom of the slide, there are two pie charts, one representing the gender distribution among national focal points, and the other illustrating the attachments to the submitted reports. I'd like to draw your attention to the national gender pie chart, which reveals the gender proportions of national focal points responsible for submitting the first full national report in their respective countries. This chart demonstrates an almost equal gender balance among national focal points under the convention, and we hope to see further improvements in the next reporting cycle. Thank you very much. And I now hand over back to my colleague Richard for the next part of the session.
Thank you very much, Lynn. This is the information you shared is really, really very good. And it's also very encouraging to see such positive progress. And speaking about positive progress, here in front of you, I'm sharing the key findings of the periodic report. On the first bullet, there's key indicated progress of parties in the implementation of the convention. So in our review, we've noted that in the following articles, there is indicated progress. These are under Articles 5, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, and 19. However, some parties also, so in addition to these indicated progress based on the reports, parties also shared notable issues. In the bubble in front of you, you will note that one of these notable issues that have been raised is the illegal, informal, or unrecognized primary mercury mining that's happening in the territories of some parties. Also raised is the issue of unrecognized trade. So these are comments that are usually placed in Part E of the report, and we have taken note of this as part of our findings in 20. There are also issues raised in terms of status of meeting the convention deadlines. To your right, on the text box or thought balloon, one of the things that sort of we would like to call the attention of parties on is that in reviewing and in looking at the reports, at times the answers to some of the questions were unclear, particularly on why some deadlines were missed. One of the things that popped up during the review of the reports is that there are questions where the response is no, but the meaning of the no is ambiguous. Thus it could be interpreted to not be taking measures, or there could be other reasons for responding no. So that was one of the issues that came up. In addition to that, some of the findings also covered Part C, wherein parties also indicated the challenges that they face in implementing the convention. And of course, in Part D, where parties share their feedback on the reporting format and online reporting tool. And take note, the feedback from parties on the reporting format are also sort of considered under this general rubric and approach on national reporting, and as I will discuss shortly. Next slide, please. So we go into the meat of the session, which is the proposed amendments covering the reporting format. Monica earlier in her remarks provided an overview and glimpses of these amendments. Now I will just share with you the decisions that have clearly indicated mandate to look at the reporting format and adjustments that needed to be made there. First, there is MC 4/3, where the mandate is to provide draft text to revise reporting format, draft text to revise the reporting format to enable collection of information on the measures taken related to the amendment to Annex A. The second directive comes from Decision 4/8, wherein there is a mandate to reflect clarifications to questions 3.1 and 3.5, both in the reporting format and the online reporting tool. Decision 4/8 also has this broad mandate, which requested the Secretariat to identify any questions regarding the reporting format that might pose challenges to parties in responding and to propose related clarifications on the basis of parties' experience of completing the first full reports. So this last bullet, really, if you look at 515 add 1, comprises a small part, but in tandem with the ICC, in their review, you will see the list of recommendations affecting the reporting format in line with decision MC 4/8. Moving on to the next slide. So what type of amendments will you see? So the purpose of our session today is not to outline each and every amendment that's contained in the document. Rather, our goal is to orient you, the parties, on what these types of amendments are and how to approach the document. So the following slides I will be describing and also highlighting the various sort of, if you may, categories or classes of amendments that you will find in the document. Now, as you will note in MC in the previous slide, there were specific decisions. One of it mandated the changes to the reporting format to reflect amendments to Annex A. So this directly affects question 4.1 and question 4.3. In front of you is question 4.1. I will not read all of it. I will leave it at your leisure later to look at it. But fundamentally, the point of the first slide is that the Secretariat deemed that question 4.1 does not need any amendments because the question is clear. Now, in this instance, the Secretariat was judicious in looking at this particular format, this particular question, and what adjustment is going to be made is with the ORT. As you will note, for the national focal points present, the online reporting tool provides a list of Mercury added products that are covered. And what we will do is that we will add, we will add the added measure or the added items in because of the amendment to Annex A into the ORT. Next slide, please. Now, here before you is question 4.3. To the top left, you will find the current format of question 4.3. To your right, with the bigger box and with underlined, this correspond to the changes that's being proposed. So this is a change that what we would call is a simple updating of the reporting format by reason of the Annex A amendment. As you will note, the current question does not fully respond to the amendment. What the Secretariat has done is that, as you will note in the first line, question 4.3, we've expanded what the measures are, where to find the measures, particularly enumerating, mentioning subparagraphs I to small ix of Part 2 of Annex A. And then below that, you will find an elaboration of the amendment to Annex A and the intricacies of the amendment. So as you can see from the slide in front of you, as we call it, this is a straight update to the reporting format by reason of the amendment to Annex A. Next slide, please. As in this slide, we look at MC 4/8. And again, we look at what is being requested. So if you will recall, there was a request to clarify questions 3.1 and 3.5. The gold boxes to your right explains what those clarifications are and how are they going to be reflected in the reporting format. These are already operational as of the second short national report. So question 3.1 is on primary mercury mining, and it touches on the total amount to be reported. And question 3.5, the clarification is to elaborate whether the no also means no export. As I mentioned, these are already operational in the current short national reports. Now, I draw your attention to the second bullet on the proposed related clarifications with regard to the party's experience in completing the first full national report. Next slide, please. So in the following slide, you will see the first example of what these clarifications are based on the party's experience. In front of you to the left is question 4.5. This is the current question under the reporting format. In reviewing the national reports, we've noted that parties, in particular, had a difficult time with the no question, rather with the no option. As you can see to your right, with underline, is the new text that is being proposed. And this new text is starts with the no by providing clarification or options, relevant options for parties to check, whether it's no action was taken, or no, an assessment of the risk and benefits of the products demonstrate, et cetera, et cetera. So as you will see, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the current format has a no option, but the no response is ambiguous. By creating additional options for parties to check, we hope to provide greater clarity and also improving data management for the responses. Next slide, please. So here is an example of two other types of amendments that you will see in 515 and 1. The top one is what we would call aligning the question text with the convention. You will see in the underline there are some text changes which has been recommended or suggested by a party to ensure that the text of the convention is properly reflected in the question. To your right is question 11.1. This is what we would sort of broadly call clarifying question by adding relevant response options. What does that mean? If you look at the current version of 11.1, all the items that's underlined is not present. So upon reviewing a particular report, we've noted that some parties would either just answer yes and indicate one measure and not elaborate on the other two measures, which creates an ambiguity in the answer, and which, through the proposed amendments, it can be better, be helpful for parties to be able to clarify their responses and improve data management as well of the responses. Next slide, please. Here, I will cover these items that were reviewed by the Implementation and Compliance Committee on the reporting format. A good example of this is in question 17.1. Upon reviewing the responses, several parties have raised comments that 17.1 is redundant or it's confusing. The proposed amendments hopes to address that by, again, providing clarifications to the question, not only by adding relevant response options, but also aligning it with the convention text. My apologies if the text is a little bit too small. I would invite you to look at add one more carefully, because you will see this a little bit better. But you will see all the items in underline here correspond to the convention text on Article 17.1. By creating these options for parties, it eliminates guesswork in terms of what 17.1 is looking for, at least when you look at the ORT. So again, here is an example where the Implementation and Compliance Committee looked at the response to 17.1 and made a suggestion that this can improve and facilitate responses by parties. Next slide, please. Now, this next example is what we would say, or at least describe, overlapping proposed amendments, because one amendment is arising from the Implementation and Compliance Committee, and then another amendment is it overlaps with another proposed amendment coming from decision MC4/3. To be more specific, if you look at the question format or question box to the right, as you will note that the text in underline are added to reflect the decision that question 3.3 is a continuing obligation. Thus, the response to it needs to be continuous. There's continuously updated. So in order for parties to be able to reflect their answers, the additional text that with new having new data, yes, with new data is added, or yes, same stocks as reported in the previous report was added to distinguish whether there's new data or we're still working with the same results from the previous report. The box to your right, sorry, can you please just go back one more slide? Yes, thank you. Let me just sort of emphasize the box to the right. You will now see an expanded version of question 3.3, because as you will note, question 3.3 has essentially two parts. One is whether the question focuses on identifying individual stocks of mercury compounds exceeding 50 metric tons. And then there's the next part of the question on whether there are sources of mercury supply generating stocks exceeding 10 metric tons. What the proposal to the right is offering is that the question is bifurcated into two, identifying individual stocks and identifying mercury supply generating stocks. Again, these are what we would say call clarifying questions by adding relevant response options. That is all, so again, to further facilitate the response of parties and avoid confusion. Next slide, please. I'll hand off this portion to my colleague Lara, as I mentioned about ICC recommendations, so she can provide you more details of the work done by the ICC and the interlinkages. Lara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Richard. Hello, everyone. My name is Lara Ognibene. I am the legal officer with the Secretariat. And I would like to introduce to you a couple of slides on the work of the Implementation and Compliance Committee during the intersessional period between COP-4 and COP-5. So the committee was established under Article 15 of the Convention to promote implementation and review compliance with all provisions of the Convention. The committee met twice during the intersessional period, once online in September last year and once in person earlier this year in March. And according to Article 15, the committee can consider issues of compliance and implementation based either on written submissions from any party with respect to its own compliance, but we have not received any so far. Requests from the COP, again, we haven't received any requests from the COP on this matter, and also national reports submitted in accordance with Article 21. Therefore, the work of the committee was focused on examining issues of compliance and implementation on the basis of national reports. This is what the committee did during the two meetings last year and this year. And for the first time, the committee looked at the responses of parties provided in the full national reports. So all 43 questions contained in the reporting format. So they had a lot of information to review. So based on the Secretariat report on the full national reports, you've heard some of the key findings earlier by my colleague Richard, and also based on the committee's deliberation, the committee agreed to a number of conclusions and recommendations for consideration by COP-5. These recommendations touch upon a number of articles, not only those that are related to national reporting and the amendments to the reporting format that you've just heard from Richard, but also other articles like Article 3 on supply and trade, Article 4 on products, and 5 on processes, on SGM, on emissions and releases, on wastes and interim storage. So we have a number of recommendations on different substantive areas under the convention that will be that have been sent for consideration to COP-5 and that can be found in document working document 15, which is available on our website. Moving on to the next slide, I will just give you a flavor of how these ICC recommendations have been integrated in existing working documents, depending on their relevance to specific agenda items of the provisional agenda for COP-5. So we have some ICC recommendations that were integrated under the national reporting document and proposed action, as you've heard from Richard right now, but also under other agenda items to be considered by the COP, namely under Mercury sources and trade, which will be considered under agenda item 4A, on the review of the financial mechanism to be considered under agenda item 4G, under capacity building, technical assistance and technology transfer to be considered under agenda item 4H, and finally also on international cooperation and coordination, which will be considered under agenda item 5. So as mentioned by Monica and Richard before me, all this information how the Secretariat has integrated recommendation into working documents and proposed actions for the COP to consider will be further explained during a Secretariat briefing that the Secretariat is organizing on the Sunday preceding the opening of COP-5 on the 29th of October. This will be an in-person meeting that will be taking place at the venue of COP-5 at CICG in Geneva. And this will be an opportunity for the Secretariat to further explain the linkages between the agenda item on national reporting and on ICC, which will be presented jointly in plenary too. I will then go back to this. So at the end of this presentation, when we look at the agenda for COP-5, and also it will be an opportunity for the Secretariat to present again its findings on national reporting and the answers contained in the first full national reports. And finally, it will be also an opportunity for the current ICC chair, Annick Baudouin, but also the former chair, Paulina Riquelme, to give more information and explain the work of the committee during the intersessional period, and also explain more how the committee reached its conclusions and recommendations for the COP. So please keep this date in mind and join us on Sunday to hear more about this. Thank you. I will stop here and hand over to my colleague Richard. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lara. To continue, and also because of the, I'm conscious of the time, so I beg your indulgence if I'll go through some of the slides very quickly, so we have enough time for question and answers. So in the slide in front of you refers to Addendum 2 on the draft guidance. And just to emphasize that the addendum contains comments received and observations from the following: the parties and stakeholders, as well as the ICC. So the result of the work is contained in the version of the draft guidance in the annex to the document. To give you a flavor of what the amendments are, or what the proposed amendments are, next slide, please. Here is something that what you'll see and how the Secretariat has approached this. For example, in page 8, question 3.2, we've underlined again the continuing on the issue of primary mercury mining and providing guidance to parties as to what will be reported, including formal, informal, or illegal. And question 3.3 on page 10, the draft reporting guidance, there's an additional information on the obligation to endeavor individual stocks as a continuing obligation. Next slide, please. Here you have in question 11.2 in page 35, a broader description of the final disposal. We've received comments from parties saying that the final disposal is not well defined. Here's an attempt in the guidance to add further clarity to the definition of final disposal. Next slide, please. You can find all of this, all of the comments. We received 8 comments, 7 from parties and 1 from observer. You can find this in the intersessional work tab. You can find this in the web page. You can see the intersessional work tab. click onto that and then click on draft reporting guidance for all the comments that the Secretariat received on this issue. Next slide, please. Just to quickly go over some of the activities that the Secretariat has done to support submission on the second short national reports. We had a Minamata Online section in April of this year, providing deep question-by-question guide on how to respond. There is also a planned online session for new parties on how to respond to the guidance that is scheduled for October 16, 2023. It's on a Monday. And then also there's a continuing engagement online and in person with parties leading up to the 31st December 2023 deadline to ensure a good rate of response and submission as well. Next slide, please. Suggested action. This is the key part. So we've outlined the following for the COP as it may wish to consider. And these are the following: adopt the amendments to the reporting format, request the Secretariat to reflect the amendments in the reporting format and in the online reporting tool. There's also the adopting the reporting guidance for use by the parties, and importantly, request the Secretariat to reflect the amendments to the reporting format as adopted in the reporting guidance. Next slide, please. Yeah, we've reached question and answer. So I open the floor and invite my colleagues to tune in for any questions you may have on the presentation thus far. I'll just check the chat. There's no questions. Okay, we have a question in the chat from Derek Wong for the second full national report to be submitted by December 20. What is the report period? January 21. Is this so for the if it's for the full? Are you referring to the full national report, second full, or the second short? The second short national report is now will be due for submission December 31, 2023. It covers the period from January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2022. For the second full report, it covers the period from January 1, 2021, all the way to December 31, 2024. And it's to be submitted on December 31, 2025. That's a bit of a mouthful. I'll type that in and send it to you, Derek. And you can also refer to our website in terms of the reporting deadlines and submissions. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Looking forward to it. You're welcome, Derek. And if you have any other questions, just let us know. You can email us and continue to type it in the chat box. As you're typing it in the chat box, I'd like to invite Lara, who will have some COP-5 reminders for everyone. But we're not closing the Q&A. We're just maximizing the time. So Lara, please go ahead and do the introductions on the COP-5 reminders. And for everyone that's online, please continue to send us your questions on the chat, and we'll try to respond to you as quickly as possible. Thanks. Lara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Richard. So just a few reminders on the upcoming COP-5 as you take your time to fill in your questions in the chat box. So next slide, please. So here, these are screenshots from our website, where you can find a lot of information on the upcoming COP-5 and related preparations and preparatory meetings. You will find also under the tab documents, all available documents that we have prepared for COP-5. These have been made available by the Secretariat starting early September. And you can find all those that are available on the website. Most of them are. Those related to national reporting and ICC are there, so you can go and read them. But you can find many more already. And these also include information documents that are being uploaded on our website. So moving on to the next slide, where you can see a tentative schedule of work for COP-5. Our work will start in plenary at 10 on the morning of the the 30th of October. You see here highlighted on Tuesday morning, this is when the COP will consider agenda item for G on national reporting and I on implementation and compliance committee. As mentioned earlier, the COP will consider these two items together as the Secretariat will present also these documents during the same session, one after the other, because of the linkages between these two agenda items. And also finally, here you have an overview of an end schedule of work. You see that our work will start even before the Monday. So we have scheduled some meetings on the Sunday preceding the opening. You will have bureau meetings in the morning. A bureau meeting in the morning. We'll have the Secretariat briefing that I mentioned earlier on national reporting and ICC starting at 12:30 on Sunday, 29th of October, and then we'll have regional meetings in the afternoon. And then we will continue during the week on starting from 30th of October. We'll have plenary sessions in the morning from 10 to 13 hours, and then resume plenary in the afternoon from 15 hours to 18 hours. And depending on what is decided in plenary, also contact groups will be working in parallel with the sessions, the plenary sessions, with the understanding that only one contact group will be able to run in parallel with the plenary, and only two parallel working groups will be able to run in parallel when plenary is not in session, to allow delegates to attend as much as possible contact groups. If you have any additional questions, I see we are at the end of our allocated time. Please do not hesitate to contact us, and we'll be happy to provide you any support you need as much as possible. Thank you very much. Oh, there is a last slide. We are preparing also the Minamata Online Season 3 in preparation for COP-5. You see here a list of upcoming and past also online briefings and sessions that have been conducted in preparation for COP-5. You see the briefings on COP-5 documents that was organized last Wednesday, and all presentations and documents are available on our website, and all session briefings were recorded, so you can listen to the recording. You have obviously the national reporting deep dive of today, and then you have upcoming ones on effectiveness evaluation on the 14th. You have ASGM on the 14th as well. And then on 11th of October, you have we have planned program of work and budget. And today also we had one session on financial resources and mechanism just before this one. I'll stop here and hand over to Richard in case I've missed something or you would like to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lara, and sorry to everyone, we went over time for 3 minutes. I know that there's still some questions on the chat. Please direct your questions to us. You have our emails, and then we will respond individually. Just a note as well, in terms of schedule, the one we presented on COP, we did not yet include there the Sunday events or the Sunday schedule. Please check the website for the most updated schedule. We just only showed this portion of the schedule to you as a means of highlighting the activities planned out for the week. So with that, thank you very much, and thank you for your participating and being with us today. We greatly appreciate you being here and for the continued support in the implementation of the convention. Let's all make Mercury history. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful evening, and stay tuned for the next online sessions. Have a great day. Thank you.